Hi, I'm Doug Atkinson here at Solutions Review, and we couldn't be happier to host the 4th annual Insight Jam. I want to thank everyone who's participating this week, as well as our Insight Jam sponsors, DataStax, Monte Carlo, Denodo, High Gear, and Seller Data. I also want to thank our Solutions Review editors and staff for pulling this event together. When we started this in 2019, we wanted to take a moment at the end of the year to celebrate enterprise technology with a social media event offering best practices and predictions. This will be our biggest jam ever, including 16 live-streamed expert panel discussions over 4 days. And we intend to keep the insights flowing in 2023 with the launch of an expert subscription site for any tech professional who wants to publish posts on Solutions Review. Again, thank you all for being here and enjoy the Insight Jam.
Solutions Review presents Insight Jam, a social media celebration of enterprise technology. Hello and welcome back to the 4th and final day of the Insight Jam. My name is Jonathan Paula. I'm the Director of Multimedia here at Solutions Review. Today's focus has been on business intelligence, and for our penultimate panel this week, we've assembled 6 data experts to discuss mastering data integrity, data quality in the cloud age. Susan Walsh, Will Robbins, Prashant, Philippe, Tom, and LK. Thank you for joining me and welcome to the show. It's great to have you all here. Before we begin the panel proper, I'd like to take a minute to thank our sponsor Monte Carlo and play a quick video from them.
Bad data wastes time and resources, erodes trust, and results in lost or missed revenue. Companies lose millions of dollars per year due to bad data. From missed opportunities, to misallocated marketing budgets, to inaccurate reporting that causes customers to churn. Software engineering teams have been managing application downtime for over a decade, using robust observability solutions like New Relic and Datadog to deliver better digital experiences for their customers. We at Monte Carlo think it's time we apply that same level of diligence to our data. Introducing Data Observability, an end-to-end approach to enable teams to deliver more reliable and trustworthy data. Data Observability ensures that you're the first to know about data issues, that you're equipped to resolve those issues quickly, and that you understand your environment deeply enough to prevent issues from happening in the first place. Monte Carlo is dedicated to helping your team eliminate data downtime and accelerate the adoption of data across your company.
All right, thank you to Monte Carlo again for being a diamond-level sponsor of this year's Insight Jam. But now it's on to the discussion at hand. Susan Walsh has graciously agreed to moderate, so I'll let her kick things off with a quick introduction, 60 seconds about your background, what excites you to be here today. Take it away, and good luck, everyone.
Thanks, Jonathan. Hi, everyone. I'm Susan Walsh, the classification guru, fixer of dirty data. That is what I live, breathe, eat, and sleep. So data integrity, data quality, and talking about this topic it's not even work for me, it's a pleasure. I have been working in the data space for about a decade now, classifying and cleaning and fixing all different kinds of data. I've also written a book called Between the Spreadsheets to try and make this a more interesting and fun topic. I mean, I'm sure the panel will agree with me that it is a fabulously interesting topic to us, but some people might not always see it like that. So that is myself. I cannot wait to moderate this panel and have some amazing discussions over the next 60 minutes. I'd like to introduce next Will Robbins, who may or may not have a special guest with him. I can't quite see that. There she is. Yeah.
But yeah, thank you so much, Susan. I'm a product manager at Monte Carlo. We're a data observability solution. And so every day I have the privilege of working with customers who are using modern data stack, and we help them bring trust and reliability to the data that they serve to their customers or to their end users.
Thanks very much. Okay, next, LK, you're up next on my screen, so let's go with you.
Sure, thank you, Susan. Hey, I'm Lakshmi Khan. Feel free to call me LK. I'm the innovation head of Credence. We are a last mile analytics company, but we deal with customers in and out in terms of the consumer goods or the retail side of the businesses. We work with tons and tons of data on a day in and day out. And my job is to ensure we build enough platforms to manage and maintain and use this data.
Thank you very much. Next, it is the data doc himself, Mr. Tom Redmond. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. Thank you for inviting me to join this panel today. Yes, my name's Tom Redmond. Many know me as the Data Doc. I'm an advisor to companies. I help them unscrew this unholy mess, which is data quality. And the unfortunate reality is that data quality is eating companies alive, and they have a vague sense of that. But by and large, they're going about it wrong. They're not approaching it from a proactive, get rid of the root causes of issues kind of approach. They're not putting the right people in place. They're not assigning people to the right roles and responsibilities. And I help them understand the problem from a business perspective, what it's costing them, and their options for dealing with it. And then hopefully we get them to take the best approaches, put the right people in place, and then get those people trained up to address the root causes of the problem.
Thanks very much. And Prashant, how about you? Introduce yourself.
Hi, everybody. Hi, everyone. My name is Prashant Singh. I'm a consultant, author, and a professor. I've consulted for over 80 different organizations in my 3 decades of my career. Some big ones such as P&G, GE, and Apple and Shell, but very small companies as well. But the problem has been the same. How do we get value out of data analytics? Basically, the scale and complexity varies, but the problem, the fundamental question is the same. How do you get value? Apart from that, I've written these 2 books behind me, the Data for Business Performance and Analytics Best Practices. And I'm also a professor of data analytics at IE Business School in Madrid, Spain. So last week I was in Madrid. This week I'm in Calgary, Canada. That's where I'm based out of.
Amazing, thank you. And then last but not least, Philippe.
Hi, everyone. So I'm Philippe Assunção. I'm a senior director of product management at TIBCO Software, working on the data management topic. I've been working on the data space for something like 15 years. I'm specialized on master data management, and I started my career on project implementations and moving to pre-sales, and I'm now on the product management side. And I'm very happy to be here and looking forward to this discussion.
Fantastic. We have an amazing range of experience, and we are all working trying to solve the same problems. And the magic word came up when Will was speaking, and that for me was trust. That's the biggest problem that I hear with data in companies across the globe. So how can teams get started with data trust, building that trust in their data? Who wants to start with that?
So I'll take a whack at that, Susan. I think the first thing, in any problem is admit you have a problem. And the reason data is not trusted is quite simply it is not trustworthy. Over the years, I've gathered a bunch of statistics on that, looking at the way the quality of data as people use it. And there's a lot of, subtleties around, the measurements, but sort of put the data in a DQ score of 60%. It should not be trusted at that level. And the harm it does to companies is enormous. So step 1, if you're going to build trust, is admit you have a problem, right? Step 2 is dig deeper to understand why you have a problem and the kinds of approach and organizational changes you're going to have to make to address it across the entire company.
I would just add to that before anyone else jumps in that I have a lot of problems talking about the clients I work with because they don't want to admit they've got a data problem and that I've helped them. And I actually think if organizations were more open about sharing their problems and their knowledge sharing, then we could actually solve a lot more data problems. But how would anyone else get started with data trust in an organization?
If I may, I would just also add that one of the problems today is the volume of data that our customers have. And I would say that they trust their data by default until they have a problem. And then when they have problems, then they call us to try to fix that.
I would maybe also say that some of the trust comes from data quality issues, data integrity issues. What kinds of problems do you see in your daily lives that your clients might be suffering from when it comes to data quality issues?
Hey, Susan, I'll go here. So when I talk to my clients as well as the prospects, I see three patterns, or three questions which they generally have. The number one is how do you make data valuable? So that's, of course, it is subjective. Now, the first thing is, what is the purpose for data? So generally, I have said that there are three main purposes of data. Number one, operations. Number two, compliance. And the third one is decision making. So the first thing is they want to make sure that the data is valuable from these three perspectives. That's number two, as Philippe was talking about, there is a lot of data companies are capturing today. So they say that almost like 80 to 90% of the data is unstructured data. I call it as a new acronym, I call it as TAVI, which stands for text, audio, video, and images. So the next question they have is, how do you make sure that, especially from analytics perspective, we take this unstructured data and make it structured? Because all the data science models depend on structured data. How you query it depends on the way it's been structured. And the third question they have is, how do you build a culture of data, the data culture and data literacy in the organizations? So again, to summarize, the three major problems which companies are talking about these days, in my experience, is about how to make data valuable from the three perspectives. How do you transform the data from an unstructured to a structured format so that you can get better value from analytics? And the third thing is, how do you build a system of improved data culture and higher data literacy in the organization?
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. I think that actually also a lot of data problems are people problems. We all work with data, but we're not all data professionals. And do the others? Do you find data literacy issues with the organizations that you're working with, and even maybe within your own?
So I really want to jump in here. I think that there is a management philosophy that goes, no matter what goes wrong, blame it on the lowest paid people, right? And the cold, brutal reality is almost in everyone, in every company, is forced to deal with data quality issues just to get their work done, right? A salesperson comes in and they're supposed to make a bunch of calls, but they're dealing with bad data that they got from the marketing department, bad data they get from leads, or bad leads data, and they are asked to deal with those problems. They've been given no training. There is no clarity of responsibility on what the marketing department should be doing so that they're providing good leads. People are getting blamed without clear roles and responsibilities, and without the training they need to effectively deal with bad data. And I think this is a really important point. It's too many people see data quality, people as part of the data quality problem. The reality is people are the key to the solution to data quality problems. And it is a subtle but incredibly important distinction.
Tom, I agree with that a lot. We see it with a lot of our customers. It's a combination of people, process, and technology, which is very, very typical way to address a problem. And one of the reasons we see customers or prospects, companies come to us is oftentimes they've had some kind of very recent data disaster of some kind. Maybe at a very senior level, somebody reported the wrong numbers to the board or to Wall Street, or sometimes they had some very important dashboard or pipeline or something break and nobody discovered for 3 or 4 or 5 weeks, and that caused a lot of bad decision making. So one is a recent disaster. We oftentimes will see also the data team is just drowning in user reported issues, and they're trying to get on top of that. And then the third thing that we often see is people are starting over in some way. Either they're migrating to a new warehouse and they want to do it right from the ground up, or sometimes if it's a large enterprise, we'll see them moving towards a data mesh strategy, for example, and they view trust and reliability of the data as a core tenet of driving that data mesh strategy forward.
Thank you. We've actually got a lot in common, because I think most of my clients are reactive in terms of fixing the problem rather than being proactive. And a really good way to be more proactive is to have some data governance in place. And I know that that's something that you're well experienced in.
Yeah, if I may, yeah, when we speak about data governance, usually like on the market, we are speaking about like describing how the data is managed and where the data is located. But in fact, the problems that our customers are facing is really the lack of data governance. So the problem is that they don't really control how the data is created, how it's maintained, by which team, like if there's processes to control the data in their system. So it's exactly to go on the same point as what, for example, Will also was saying. And so this lack of control causes data quality problems, of course. And so they want us to simply improve how the data is maintained by putting in place some data management processes, some real processes to enforce data governance, to improve the data quality and avoid, I would say, to fix the problem. It's really to create the data with the right level of data quality directly from the beginning.
Thank you.
So, and I can add to what Philippe.
Yeah, absolutely.
So if you look at the industry and if you look what's happened is in the last few years, a lot of time has been spent in creating how to acquire the data. And a lot of time has been spent to acquire data in the first party. That means data originating within your organization or in the access to your organization. Over the period of time, this data has got accumulated with a lot of third-party data, clearinghouse data, industry data coming in. So the acquisition part has been very monstrously big in the last few years. Add to this, we have a lot of modern platforms in the cloud which have come in, which are very elastic in nature, using this to actually compute the data at a very large scale. But more importantly, the data has also got democratized so fast and so quick that siloed uses of this data has led to a lot of uncharted ingestion of information into the system. And I also want to talk about what Prashant said about unstructured data adding to this mountain of data. Now, when you put all the acquisition, when you put the third party, when you put the democratization, and you put the unstructured data, the whole data platform is now more contextually consistent across. And this is where the real data challenges have started coming in, because the context of the data is very, very important and how you drive value out of it. And this is where a lot of things have to get streamlined. And this is what I see as the future of the work in the data platform area.
Something that I see is when I talk to potential clients, they're not always thinking about the future and what they want the end goal to be. It's always about fixing an immediate problem. And so I always say, well, what's your end goal? And do you think maybe there's a part of this where we're just collecting all the data rather than the data we need? And that could potentially be contributing to some problems?
Right. Susan, I just want to talk about that thing about what LK also said about data management and what you said earlier about proactive and reactive. So there is a fundamental rule of quality management, and that applies to data quality management as well, which is the 1-10-100 rule. So it takes $1 to be proactive and fix the problem, and spend $100 and be reactive and fix the problem once it reaches the customer. So you have a choice. So either you want to spend $100 and be reactive, or be proactive and spend $1. So that's what I advise my clients. Let's be proactive and try to fix as much as the issues as possible.
I'm going to quote that now. I'm going to absolutely take that and quote that. That's fantastic. I guess it goes back to these organizations have to start somewhere. So how do we get them started? What small steps can they take to get on a journey to better, cleaner data?
Well, one of the things that we recommend, and of course this is a bit selfish being a data observability solution, but we really strongly recommend, if you're struggling with these quality issues, to take a look at data observability. And oftentimes we're working with teams that are stretched incredibly thin. And so our point of view is they should start with a tool that leverages a lot of automation and a lot of machine learning. One of the things we're seeing, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, so data observability is a kind of the new trendy, sexy word that's going around the data town right now. Could you tell us a little bit more about it and what its use cases are and how it's helping some of your clients?
Sure. Many modern companies are investing in really, really expensive and also best-in-class data infrastructure, best-in-class data people, really modern process and methodology to build data products. And those products are either serving internal users in the form of dashboards or data marts, but also, oftentimes these are also data products that serve external customers. Sometimes it's even the heart of the business is serving data in some way, shape, or form. And in the process of building those products, just like building any product, there's bugs or things break, or you have well-intentioned engineers whose projects conflict, something like that. And data observability is all about providing a set of tools to understand when and where and how things are breaking so that people can find and fix them really, really quickly and minimize what we call data downtime, which is periods of time when the data is wrong or broken or otherwise unusable.
And would that be kind of taking multiple different systems and having like an umbrella helicopter view of everything that's going on in them? Is that what it involves?
Yeah, so I mean, the vision is you want observability from what we would call end-to-end. And oftentimes where we think about starting is we oftentimes will start with data that's been ingested into data warehouse or data lake, and then down to where it's being presented to the business in BI. Where we're investing a lot to monitor what's going on, what do the normal patterns look like, and then we help make it easy to understand when and where things are breaking.
Great. And you've just spoken there about people buying lots of trendy tools, etc. I see this so much, and I'd love to hear some of your stories as well around some common industry myths that you hear from clients who have maybe bought something or tried something that they've heard about. Yeah.
Susan, may I weigh in here and
go for it, Tom.
Slightly different direction here. If we hold up a mirror and we do it through the data lens, we have to recognize that all of us every day, oftentimes almost simultaneously, serve in two roles. We're data customers. By that, we are depending on data created by others. The other thing we are is we're data creators. We're creating data that hopefully is going to be used downstream by, people to, do whatever it is they do. And as I mentioned, like marketing people create leads data so that sales can turn them into orders and we can make money, right? So, the companies are daisy chains of data being passed around. And people, it's obvious when you think about it that you are a data creator and a data customer. But has anybody ever gone through and clarified your responsibilities in those roles, right? And so if you're a data customer, it's okay, well, if I go and I buy a car and the car has a lot of defects, I don't bang out the dings in the car. I go back to the source of the car and I ask them to get fixed there. But we fall in, without recognizing we're data customers, people fall into the trap of trying to fix it themselves, or they outsource it, to the data governance team, which is supposed to do that, right? The approach I find is that once people understand these roles and some clarity around what it means to be a good data customer and what it means to be a good data creator, and we connect customers and creator, quality is remarkably quickly. As I mentioned, a DQ score of 60%. I mean, that score can go within weeks to the high 90s. Fundamentally, the philosophy that data quality is primarily a management issue. It stems from the fact that people have not stepped in because they've never been explained the proper roles as data customers and data creators. And let me tell you, it's like magic once this happens, right? Problems go away, never to return.
Thanks so much. And actually, I think a piece around literacy and knowledge there, I've seen in terms of myths, you buy our software and it's going to fix all your problems. It's magic. And then they get the software and guess what? It doesn't fix all their problems. And have you guys experienced similar stories?
Susan, I like the term which you used here, myths, which I come across almost every day. So in the interest of time, I'll just pick, while Tom was talking, I just made some points. In the interest of time, I'll talk about 3 important myths which people have in data quality. The first myth is that people think that there is something called as 100% quality data. So the reality is it's not true. It doesn't exist. Because data is a recording of the historical event, and business is always in a state of flux and change. It changes because of mergers and acquisitions, regulations, divestitures, new product introductions, COVID, so many things. So business is always in a state of flux, and you can't expect data to be a static 100% quality. It's basically data quality is achieving good quality data, is balancing cost and value. That's number one. That's the first myth. The second myth which I have is the quality levels varies depending on the purpose for which you are using data. As I said earlier, data has 3 purposes: operations, compliance, and analytics. If you look at operations and compliance, they are more deterministic. They are centered around business processes. Whereas if you look at analytics, they are hypothesis based. They are pretty much stochastic in nature. So the more questions you have in analytics, so the more data you need, and sometimes at some point in time, depending on the severity or the complexity of the question, the data might at some point in time just give up because you don't have the data. Whereas in operations and compliance, it is pretty much deterministic. And the third one is the values dependent on the stage in the data analytics lifecycle are. I call them 4 stages in the data lifecycle. Data capture, I think LK spoke about it. Data integration, which is a huge issue. I think Will spoke about it as part of observability. The third thing is data science, and the last one is decision science. So depending on the stage in the data analytics lifecycle, the value actually changes. But many of my clients think that the data values throughout the stage of the lifecycle, it is constant. That's the third myth which I have. Of course, there are many myths which we can discuss for hours and hours, but these are the top 3 myths which I often see.
Thank you. And I think it's really good to talk about managing expectations with clients on what they can achieve, because I have heard of projects costing tens of millions of dollars being scrapped because they didn't think about their data quality to start with.
Yeah. So I came from GE. I worked in GE a long time back. And in GE, there was a story which says that it takes a huge amount of effort to go from 4 Sigma level to 6 Sigma, given that GE pioneered 6 Sigma level. So do you really want to go to that 6 Sigma level? Tell me those use cases where you have that 6 Sigma level, which would be almost like 99% data quality, where life and death is involved.
Prashant, one of the things you said, I think it was your bullet number 1, resonated a lot with me, where I think you said there's no such thing as 100% data quality. And how I've explained this to some of our customers is that data is like fashion. It's never done.
Yeah.
And so if you ever get to a place where like everything's perfect and you've dotted all your T's and crossed all your I's, either it means that nobody's using what you've produced and therefore you're getting no feedback, or you're just not innovating and you're not changing anything. I think some degree of problems is a natural reflection of
kind of a bit like I don't know if you guys know Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You get to the top and you're all self-actualized and you've got perfect accurate data. It never really happens. I always say, if you do have accurate data, it's only for a second in time, because somebody will come along and delete it or copy and paste over it or change it, and then suddenly it's all gone. But
if I may also,
can I build on that a little bit?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, Philippe, what you were saying?
No, I just wanted to add. Sorry to interrupt. About all the way that we are measuring today the quality based on the score, and each, I would say, data quality application will compute the score in a different way, and so we are really trusting this score, but sometimes we don't even know how they are computed. And I've seen sometimes some customers, like when I was on pre-sale side, fighting as a vendor to show that our solution is the best, and we are, compared with some other vendors. And sometimes I had the comment like, yeah, but this other solution is identifying more problems. Like, for example, more duplicates on the data. But if we just base, on this kind of metrics or this kind of score, sometimes it doesn't mean that we are going to find the right problems on the quality. Like having more duplicates identified by a tool doesn't mean that they are real duplicates or that it makes sense. So we are facing also the difficulty, I think, for our customers. Like, it's coming back also to the notion of trust that you were mentioning at the beginning. It's like everything now is almost based on a score that is very difficult to compute. And so, again, it's bringing, I would say, sometimes more complexity than everything.
I think also, actually, we'll come to you in a minute, Tom, just different types of data will have different levels and measurability in terms of accuracy. If you're talking numbers or addresses, people's names, that's pretty well documented and measurable. But in my world, where I'm working with procurement, finance data, it's not as easy to measure. And so I think that's a really great point. And Tom, you were going to say something as well.
I'd like to build on this discussion a little bit. The range of quality requirements can be fantastic. And if you'll permit me just a little story, right? This story unfolds one day when you're in the car on your way home from a tough day at work or with a client or whatever. And you see the call is from your kid's school. So you pick it up and the principal gets on and says, look, I'm sorry to tell you this, but your kid's getting a 1-week suspension. They were involved in a fight. We don't know whether they started it or not, but our rules are any kid in a fight gets a 1-week suspension. And so you go home and the steam's coming out of your ears. You're doing your best to control yourself, and you call your kid down and you say, well, how was school today? Right? And they look you in the eyes and say, it was great. I got an A- on my Spanish test. Okay. Now, I don't think anybody considers that a quality answer, even though you absolutely trust that they got an A- on the Spanish test, right? The context of what you were looking for, the A- was not relevant to the discussion at all, right? And I make this point, I mean, almost all quality requirements, almost all customers, almost all uses of data have two requirements involving relevancy to the task at hand. And then, is the data accurate enough? But all kinds of things also come up. So with AI, we're really more and more concerned about bias, right? There's situations where, can I even find the data? Does the metadata exist so that I can understand what it means, right? The range of requirements is enormous. And as we've noted, they're customer dependent, right? Customers get to set their own quality requirements. And it's part of the reason there is no score, right? You don't get to score whether your kid is talking to you about what you want or not.
Yeah, I agree, Tom. The score is a range today. It should not be a score as a score. And it's, again, like I said, it's the type of the data, right? Today, you have a lot of data at rest. You have a lot of data in motion, but also look at the stream data that is coming in. Different data have a different traceability in terms of the accuracy of the information. And like they said, there are different timestamps and different ways to look at which timestamp is more accurate enough to actually take it. The historical analysis of information had little more leeway in terms of the accuracy. The predictive models, which are very, very dynamic today, need a context of the data in a much more accurate manner, in a much more closer range of timestamps. And that's where I think Will's point about observability is very, very good in such a dynamic situation of how the data is getting used. You want to observe the data, you want to trace the data. But we are still very reactive in that stage. But it's a great start in terms of these platforms. Some of these platforms have to be self-healing in terms of, can we correct it in time for the data to happen? It's a very difficult problem to solve today, but that's a reality.
Okay, do you think that in terms of contextualizing the data, is that a matter of bringing the building of the data closer to the is that a matter of kind of federating it more so that you can have these more discrete domain teams which manage?
That's a problem today. That's a problem today. If you look at it, when you democratize the data, the context of the data is siloed to the exact nature of the business problem, and it's not broad based. Then what happens? The accuracy is to the extent that the individual unit wants to use it, and it might be not harmonized across the organization for consistency. So when I say context, it's look at it this way: when you're doing a demand forecasting, and you're doing a demand forecasting based on certain behaviors of buying patterns or the demand, it's very historical in nature. Whereas you're looking at a very dynamic nature of the demand that's happening by external sources of information, the context completely changes. Now, is my data accurate for that context or for the context before that, which is more historical? That is what the observability platform should start looking into and healing that in time. That was my intent of saying.
Thank you. I'm going to go around to each of you and get either one word or one sentence from you, and then we'll have a discussion around who should own the data governance or the data quality or the responsibility for it. Will, how about you first?
For customers that we serve who are largely customers with a modern data stack in the cloud, about 2/3 of the time I would say data engineering. And then in larger organizations, oftentimes there will be a platform team or a data governance team who's helping build the platform, and they're setting up guardrails and basic roles and responsibility and frameworks that then are you have different domain teams that then operate within.
Thank you. That was a very long sentence, but I'll let you get away with it.
Lots of comments.
Because you were first, the others have had a chance to think. So one word or one sentence. I want to make it hard. LK, how about you?
Well, I agree with Will. The centralized data platform team should own the data.
Thank you. Tom?
Ownership is a curse to modern data management because it conveys rights and responsibilities that people should not have. The most important roles are data customers and data creators.
Thank you. Prashant?
It will not be one word, it will be a line. So I'll, based on what Will and Tom and LK said, so I look at, the answer is depends. So the question is depends on what? So basically I look at the industries into two major buckets. One is industries which are more insight centric, like which are closer to customers, like the retail, CPG, financial services, and those kind of industries. And the second type of industries which are closer to data, like the oil and gas and mining, which are closer to regulations and which are closer to markets, which are selling products which are fungible in nature. So these are the two things. So if you look at the insight-centric industry, I will go with what Will said, the data engineering team. If you're looking at the data-centric industries, I will look at probably the CDO's office, which has got a separate data governance function.
Thank you very much. And Philippe?
Yeah, so it depends if we are speaking about like on data governance, like again, documenting or implementing really the processes. Because if it's about like putting in place a data governance, I would say, and I will join, I think, Tom, like there's no responsible on that. And we see like the goal is really to have the different teams that have the knowledge to enter and master their own information to at the end have the central repository of quality data. So it's a bit a different answer from the others, but I join Tom as no responsible that should be.
Yeah, no, it's really interesting. I think what it says to me and what I've learned from this is that actually it depends on the organization, on the type of data. There isn't this one size fits all for everything, which I think a lot of people are looking for when it comes to data. But then I guess another question following on from that is, how do you feel about data democratization then?
Define what you mean by it.
Go ahead.
Oh, okay. I guess in my mind, that is letting business units or kind of manage their own data sets, which would roll up into something larger that might be overseen, but giving people more autonomy over controlling the rules or governance for their data. You know, for example, finance might have certain criteria that is very specific to their data, but sales and marketing will have something else completely different. So you wouldn't have the same person managing both those areas.
So
But it could mean something else to you, and that's another great question, actually. What is data democratization to all of you? So, Philippe, first of all.
No, I wanted to answer to your point better. So basically, I would say that I would be scared if we really give full responsibility of persons on certain data sets, because we are going to potentially create data silos. And what we see today is that, we have, for example, shared data sets, or I would say part of the information that a specific team could be responsible of. But at least I would say the common information are shared around the different team. But each specific team could have, for example, could be responsible for the address, for specific financial information, but just, I would say, a part of the data and not everything. But they could have full ownership on this specific piece of the information, but not the full data set, I would say.
Thank you. Prashant?
No, I'll go with what Philippe said. We have been talking a lot about democratization these days, but at the same time, we talk very little about the price which you need to pay to democratize the data. It's not like a one-dimensional thing where we talk about this cool thing about data democratization. It comes at a price. And what is that price? The price is education and governance, which is about improving the data literacy and what plans do you have to govern the data. Of course, there's a lot of cool things you can do with democratization of the data, but are you prepared for it? Are you trained your people to how to use the data responsibly, ethically, and even consciously?
Thank you. How about you, Tom?
So I think the cold, brutal reality is almost all data in almost all organizations is effectively unmanaged. And people go to all links to try to find what they need, and they use it in any way they want. And people at the end of the line who need it are forced to deal with all sorts of unholy errors and all the kinds of problems that we've talked about. To me, the democratization, I live in a democracy. I like to think that I do anyway. And there's two kinds of things going on. There's rights and there's responsibilities. And I know a lot of people are pushing data democratization, and they're pushing the right side of it. I think we've got to do a whole lot better on the responsibility side, or this mess is just going to continue to grow and grow and grow.
Thanks very much. LK, how about you?
Well, I believe data democratization cannot be avoided. It will be there because the speed of information is important. But like rest of all have said, centralizing that information and then slicing that information for the right use ensures consistency. As long as you're ingesting the information at one single place and using it in different ways by different departments, the consistency stays there. And this is how even the third-party data is used, right? To take Nielsen's or a banking information or the OFAC data, it's actually sliced out and curated at the right level. This will continue as long as we have regulations, governance around it. I think it's a very manageable process.
Thanks very much. And Will?
I think this is highly industry specific. So I think there are certain industries where either by nature of the pace of the industry or the level of importance of data to the industry or the level of regulation, you need to maintain a relatively centralized or at least very heavily governed set of rules about how data passes through and how it's processed and how it's managed. And then there's other industries where I think if you don't democratize, it's actually an existential risk to the company. I think one of those, for example, is media, where it's very much an if you look at large media companies, there's actually very much an arms race of data between these companies and how quickly can you respond to user preferences, for example, or serve certain things to customers. And if you don't democratize data, and if you don't make it easy for all these different discrete teams to operate with some degree of autonomy and also get the pieces of data that they need from each other, if you don't do that, the company won't survive, and you'll dramatically lose market share.
Thank you. And I really don't want my garbled version of data data democratization to be the only version of this on this session. So does anyone else want to tell me what the kind of official or their version of data democratization is? Or not?
I think that's kind of why it's trendy. Is that, everybody has their own take on it.
It's one of those words that everyone talks about, but actually nobody's really knows what it is. We've all got our own versions in our minds.
Yeah. So I hate to do this unfairly, but the idea has been around for a long time. So people have been talking about this idea for 15 or 20 years, and I just haven't seen the big success stories kind of thing, right? I haven't seen we did this, here's how we did it, and here's the tools we provided, here's the training we provided, and look what happened. Here was the company before, now it's 5 times more profitable, and we can assign twice that, half of that gain to the data democratization. Right. I mean, it is a very, very tricky concept to implement, and it's if it were really a good idea and people that were really serious about implementing it, I would expect to see those success stories by now.
I would one thing that I'm thinking about, Tom, as I'm hearing you describe it, is I think very often it's because there's in the last 10, 15 years, kind of a generation, at least I'm very exposed to a lot of technology companies, for example. And the ones that have come up in that cohort, I think a certain degree of data democracy or data access has been there from the beginning. And I think that's one of the things that's allowed those companies to move very, very fast. And I think it's one of the things that's very, very challenging about more legacy organizations is the fact that for them, it does require this DNA shift. And it does require this very concerted effort, which can last years and years and years, and is a lot of organizational and behavioral change. And I think that's, to your point, it's incredibly difficult to execute.
Yeah. Well, so you may be correct in terms that, like my standard is a little bit stiff, right? Maybe it is a little too soon to see those examples, but people have been pushing it hard for a long time.
Yeah, and I can give you examples about how the industry has done that. You remember the typical data warehouse and then move to the data marts. Data marts was actually trying to democratize slices of data to individual departments, financial data mart, inventory, supply chain, right? And today you see that all come back into data lakes. Then again, you see that whole data again disseminate out into a centralized data science team or a citizen data science team sitting in different departments. So it's in and out, and I agree to Tom. It's been tried out for 15 years, but like I said, democratization will be an evil that will continue in the system. Speed of information is important.
Actually, all three of you have just spoken. You're all legends within the industry now. I won't say veterans because that ages us all. But what you've seen so many changes over the last 5-10 years. What are the things that really stick out that have changed the most for you?
You mean in the data quality space?
Yeah, in data quality, in observability, all these new words that exist now and technologies that didn't before. What has really changed from when you first started out in your consulting to now? Are you still doing the same, advising the same things?
Well, go ahead.
Susan, in my career for almost 3 decades, I've seen basically four phases, I would say. The first is probably start of my career till 2010-ish, where it was more about focusing on digitization, which is primarily about data capture. How can we digitize business process, and how can we convert the information which we have into a digital format? That I call it as phase one. But again, it doesn't mean that each of the phases they end and start. They are all like cumulative. The second phase, which I see, is about the big data kind of world, where we had the cloud data warehouses, the Hadoop centric world, where the focus is, okay, we have captured so much of data in the last few decades. How can we use this data and improve and measure and get things better? That would be the second phase. Then in the third phase, which I would say probably 2015-ish later, people started saying it's not the technology that matters, it's about we need good quality data. So the focus shifted towards quality data, which is on the post-2015. And today we have been seeing the fourth phase in the, I would say probably 2020 later, is not just sufficient to have good quality data and technology and data. We also need the culture and literacy to make it happen. So today, off late, I have been seeing there's been a lot of discussion on data culture and data literacy. But at the same time, I'm not saying that phase one started and ended here. It's all cumulative. Even today, there is digitization happening. There is technology on cloud happening. There is data quality discussions and everything. But I think off late, the data culture discussions was not discussed too much earlier. But people are discussing a lot about culture and literacy these days.
I think that's a great observation there. And then actually from that, what do you see now happening in the next 5 to 10 years? Where's it going?
So I'll weigh in if you'd like. Prashant, you want to go first? Go ahead.
No, I'll just finish off my train of thoughts because I built that momentum, kind of the momentum. But what I see in the next 5 to 10 years is there is going to be more and more data that's going to be captured. As LK was saying that you can't escape this. So there is going to be democratization of data, more technology coming, more capabilities coming, and so on. So more and more data is going to be captured. But at the same time, there's going to be a tremendous risk companies are going to have if they don't manage the data well, including data governance. So I tell my clients, data is an asset, definitely, if you know how to manage and govern it. If you don't know how to manage and govern it, it's going to be a huge liability, which is going to increase your complexity, which is going to increase your carbon footprint, which is a data center cost, which is going to increase your regulations. Like for example, Cambridge Analytica came into limelight because of data analytics, and it was the same data analytics which resulted in the company's closure. So overall, data is a great asset if you know how to manage it. If you don't know how to manage it, it's a liability, and that liability is very hard to get rid of.
Thanks very much. We are running out of time, so I'll go around the rest of you quickly as well. Tom, how about you? What would you say is coming up in the future of data quality, data management?
Over the time I've been doing this, and it's been longer than even Prashant. The biggest change I've seen is that it matters more and more. I don't know, maybe it was about 10 years ago, IBM put out this statistic that bad data costs the U.S. economy $3.1 trillion, right? So I mean, $1 trillion, not billion, right? Not millions here and there, trillion. And by and large, that got ignored, kind of thing. So there's not too many $3 trillion opportunities anywhere in the world. And so what's happened is that number's been out there. I think it's now, maybe it's 2 trillion, maybe it's 4 trillion, but we've built the case that by and large, this is the size of the problem. It is the size of the opportunity, but still people aren't attacking it, right? I made the statement before that data is effectively unmanaged. And I think what we're trying to find is what is the business motivation that drives companies to attack this head on, right? With the power and the organization. And rather than, kind of, okay, well, we'll assign it to a bunch of engineers, but right, that forces them to really deal with the issue, to get people on board, to think seriously about their culture, to get the right kinds of senior executives. And I don't think we're going to see much change until individual companies, right, come to this sort of come to Jesus moment where this is part and parcel to our future, right? And of course, I think if one does, then others will follow. Industry companies, and it follows others in their industries.
Thank you so much.
But by the way, I'm actually optimistic about that.
Brilliant. Very quickly, like a couple of words from Philippe, and then LK, and then Will. What's your future looking like?
So I'm very excited about what is coming because the tools I've seen improved a lot, and that now professional applications, they are challenged by what is available in personal apps, like the apps that we are using on your phone. So, and for example, you've probably seen the OpenAI stuff that was released. that looks crazy good. And so we'll see more and more applications using, for example, like this kind of new capabilities. And our customers will expect us to provide the same. And when I say us, I'm speaking about the software vendors, or something even better because they invest in our technologies. So we expect like to have platforms that are crazy performant, almost fully automated. And in my opinion, what we'll see is that like today's platform administrators, they will not configure applications anymore. I think that they will try to mostly tune the settings that are automatically suggested. So it will go very far, and I think that's very exciting.
Thank you very much. LK, how about you?
Well, yeah, resonating on what Philip says just said, a lot of exciting things coming in as we unlock the value of the data. You'll see more powerful things like edge analytics happening. That means more discrete sets of data being formed at different places. So I think will enjoy the business there, and there will be a lot more work for the data observability.
Yeah, well, it'd be great to know, what you and Monte Carlo kind of see coming down the line.
I'm a strong believer in automation, especially in this particular space. One of the things I've found about data and data pipelining and how modern data stack works is it's extremely pattern rich. And that makes it very, very ripe for machine learning and automation to help teams understand what's going wrong, why, where, and how to solve it. So we're big believers that automation is going to.
Thank you so much. And I'm just going to round that off by saying people are talking about data quality more. That's in the 5.5 years I've had my business, I've seen that, and that's just a good thing all round. So that's it. I'm going to hand over to Jonathan because
thank you. I was trying to be polite and not interrupt, but we are running out of time. So thanks again for your expertise in the discussion this afternoon. It's been a great conversation to listen to. Before we leave, though, I would like to invite each of you to self-promote your solution, your website, social media, 30 seconds or less. Let's try to keep it short. Susan, since you moderated, we'll let you go last. Will, kick us off, please.
Thanks, everybody. I'm a product manager at Monte Carlo Data, and we help modern data teams build better data products by understanding when, where, how, and why things are breaking or going wrong. And we help them solve those problems really quickly.
Excellent. Thank you. LK.
Hi. I'm part of Credence, which is it's a great data science and an analytics company and does a lot of work on the data. We solve a lot of real-time business problems. So anybody is interested in those conversations, I'm always available. Thank you.
Step one in attacking data quality is understanding the problem, and step two is getting the right management and approach in place. And we're unmatched at helping organizations do those things.
Thank you very much. Prashant.
Yeah, so whatever I spoke today or discussed with other people was based on my upcoming book, which is going to be published by John Wiley in January, which is Data Quality, Empowering Businesses with Analytics and AI. So what is this book about? In this book, I discuss about 16 common root causes or reasons why data quality issues happen. And I also give 10 solutions for organizations to better manage their data quality.
Awesome. Thank you. And Philippe.
Yeah, please visit tipco.com and you'll get a lot of information about our product platforms and all the features that we can provide you to help you solve all your different problems.
Simple and easy. Susan, last but not least.
Thank you. I founded the Classification Guru. We are fixers of dirty data. If you need your dirty data fixed, I also wrote Between the Spreadsheets for anyone who beginner or experienced who needs some extra tips on cleaning data in Excel.
That is a great title. Thank you again, everyone, one and all, for your time and attention today. Greatly appreciated. That will do it for this topic, but if you're watching live, we certainly encourage you to stick around for our final panel of the Business Intelligence Insight Jam, where we'll be talking about data integration, engineering, and pipeline automation best practices. One last time, my thanks to our panelists today. I hope you have a great afternoon. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.